Shogetsu says that if that's the case, then the people with the relic must have chosen this other person. Since the person in the northern seat has no connection, she's confused. I'm not sure if it's him with this body or if the curved moon of the blue sea has taken control of him. Either way, he realizes that the power of the tone is stronger than the relic, as it's influencing everything in that place. They then comment that after 10,000 years, the festival would begin once again. A voice says that before the final battle, the moon gods wanted some entertainment. Each should choose a champion they trust, and before all the champions are dead, they cannot attack one another. The kings would be wiped out if they tried to participate in the fight between champions. Additionally, it was forbidden to use a supreme-level creature. With that, the order is given for each participant to announce their champions. Now Su Liang is in a tough spot because he didn't want to summon creatures from the Twin Moon Order, as they would discover it was him. All the effort to turn into a gorgeous woman and disguise himself only to be exposed like that. The Ice Girl says it's a shame to have to reveal her trump card so early. Then she shows that the champion of the East will be a crimson butterfly of Emperor rank. Su Liang already knows that she probably has something even stronger hidden. Shogetsu from the central region summons another emperor creature called Fallen Full Moon, and the sleepy girl says she's too lazy. She is the representative of the West and also summons an emperor rank creature. Now it was just him and the girl with pink hair. And the voice says they have 1 minute to announce a champion or they will be disqualified. The best option would be to summon a creature that was an emperor of the North, but he doesn't have anything like that. It would be even better if it was something related to him. Thinking about White Flower, he seems to have an idea. So he opens the lunar tom and says to spend 100 openings. After spending almost everything he has, he finds an ancestral emperor-ranked creature. Its name was Cloud and Dreams. He obtains a lot of information about her. But that's not enough. He has to pay for more information, only has 5 seconds left. Finally, after spending everything he received, he gets the chance to use her in the festival. With that, he and the red-haired girl, who is Kang Yu, is competing with him in 3 years, stretch out their arms. It is announced that the champion of the North would be Cloud and Dreams, an emperor-ranked creature. Kang Yu finds it strange since she expected something that belonged to the Twin Moon Order. Meanwhile, Su Liang is interested in something else. Kang Yu had summoned something with the same name as the Sheaf of Frost Flower. The prefix was the same, so maybe that was what the Crescent Star was looking for. Now that the 5 champions have been chosen, the Moon Festival could finally begin. And with that, the teleportations began. At that moment, the girl who had been sleeping woke up and asked how he summoned Cloud and Dreams. She said that was impossible and was about to ask who he was. But right then, our boy vanished. He's back in the Twin Moon Order and the curved moon of the Blue Sea calls for him. She asked if he felt that a few moments ago the festival had begun. The time for him to fight for the throne had arrived. He says he knows and that he will prepare, then takes his leave. She says goodbye, adding that the next time they meet, the festival will already be over. And he hopes that when that happens, his contract will also be complete. What she found strange was that he seemed to have asked her to finish off the Black Moon sect. It seemed the boy was confused about his own power, questioning the lunar tom and fearing the emperors. This meant that his memory was finally returning and she wanted to see everyone's reaction. A red light rises into the sky from the middle of the city. The moon turns blood red. Seeing the moon in everyone's hand glowing red, they wonder if it's the apocalypse. Meanwhile, a servant informs Kang Yu that the festival had begun. However, she seems shaken, saying it was impossible. If the boy had truly been chosen by the moon, that made her useless. The servant then asks if she still wants all the disciples to drop out of the competition. She says not to do that. She had changed her mind. She ordered them to set aside the internal clan competitions for now and send the 5 strongest to the northern region. Obviously, she would also go there personally. That's because she needed to see firsthand what the Lunar King was planning there. The frightened girl asks if that's really a good plan. Sending the 5 strongest from the clan to this competition would basically be a sacrifice, especially considering that it would be a full moon. Only the emperors were supposed to participate in that fight. Up north, our boy is riding his giant deer. The number of emperor-ranked creatures around the academy had gotten out of control. At that moment, someone says that the Lunar King has finally returned. It's King He from the academy, who says that he needs to bring justice because Kang Yu has declared war on them. He sees the message that the 5 strongest from Kang Yu's academy would head north to end the competition. Our boy realizes that this declaration against the academy is actually a way to test him. He tells her not to worry, that he would send the Twin Moon Order to deal with it. He needed to rest and just asked for a list of events that would happen. A few hours later, all the creatures were sleeping in bed. Meanwhile, our boy was reviewing the list. Although this festival was extremely dangerous, it still had benefits for him. The Spiritual Moon Sect and the Fallen Moon Sect were allies and were probably there just for fun. Other sects were extremely weak and he didn't even need to worry about them. The problem was the 5 Leaves Sect. That's because their competitor was Shoujo, who has 2 supreme rank creatures. Considering that the True Saints are even more powerful, he knows that maybe not even the Crescent Star would stand a chance. That was too much for the poor guy, who wasn't even sure how you would handle all of this. He already had 3 extremely strong creatures, so you couldn't say he was weak. However, it was quite different to have to fight multiple empresses at once. He's not sure if he'll really survive until the end of the festival. One of the few options was to strengthen White Flower with a fragment of lunar obsidian. Seeing her lying there, he wonders why she wears that necklace on her head until night, and to help her rest better, he decides to take it off. Clearly, there's some kind of transformation happening, and he says he's going to sleep. A while later, he wakes up. It's still very late, so he wonders why he woke up. Man, she transformed, and that's extremely dangerous for everyone. For him, for me, for you to help. The poor guy was still suffering from intense pressure, and obviously, he was on the verge of exploding. He wonders if she transformed because he removed that necklace. If she woke up and saw this situation, he'd be dead. Man, he's saying that, but he's still getting closer. And the boy keeps approaching, not even sensing the danger, until she starts to open her eyes. And she's confused when she sees the situation. Su Liang makes a dumb face, not knowing how to explain. He starts stumbling over his words, trying to say something. But the poor girl is all confused, not understanding what's going on. That's when she asks where her necklace is. He realizes that now she knows he did it, and he's screwed, so he sends it on the table. She clearly didn't like that, but in a surprisingly calm reaction, she doesn't seem too bothered. She lies back down and he asks if she's not mad that he took off the necklace. She says that when she wakes up, she'll put it back on, so there's no reason to be mad. What she doesn't understand is why he seems so nervous. Did something happen? He says it's just that he's a little embarrassed in this situation. She's still confused, wanting to know why he's embarrassed. Our boy realizes that she spent 99% of her life as an animal, so she's used to not wearing anything to cover her body. She then tells him to answer quickly because she's dying of embarrassment. He says that she was already beautiful, but her human form was so stunning that he was having trouble hiding what he was feeling. And then it clicked for her too. At that moment, she starts blushing, feeling completely flustered. But now we skip to the next day. The sun shines on her face and she wakes up. Our boy tells her to get up. Apparently, she's already gotten used to it, but she's still a bit confused. She says that he always seemed extremely tense, like he was nervous when seeing her. But this morning, he seemed relaxed and happy. Our boy says she's right. After all, until now, he's been pretending to be the Lunar King, dying of fear of being exposed. But last night, he realized something. So he thanks her, saying it was she who made him calm down. The poor girl still has that dumbfounded look on her face, but he says it's time for them to start getting ready for the Moon God Festival. Maybe he's found a way to beat the Emperor. She's happy they're going out, so that's enough for her. He tells her to at least put on some clothes. On top of the mountain, he says he wants to ask her something. He talks about the necklace she's wearing and asks if it's what makes her return to that form. After all, when he removed it, she seemed very serious about knowing where it was. She says it's because it was left by her mother, and that's why she doesn't want to lose it. The transformation was caused by a full moon that's coming, and it had nothing to do with that necklace. The poor guy gets all confused. She then asks why he brought her there and how he's planning to beat the emperors. He explains that they are at the highest tower of the event, where they can even see the elimination area, and that's where he's going to face the emperor. She says she understands, but at the moment, there doesn't seem to be an emperor, so how is he going to train? He says he's going to start a test since he's the lunar god and can communicate with the gods. And then he summons the shimmering butterfly, which immediately flies off in that direction. She questions what kind of test this is since he only summoned a weak creature. But he tells her to look again. A bunch of butterflies had gathered around. That's because the shimmering butterfly's main trait is that it can attract others. This means he can create a storm of butterflies and no one will know which one is his. White Flower stretches to get better look. Suddenly, there's an explosion of light and they all disappear. She then turns and asks Su Liang what he did. He says it's a secret for now, but during the full moon night, she'll find out. She gets mad because this Dan Alley is keeping secrets. She says that if that's the case, she won't sleep next to him until he tells her. But at that moment, the system signals that he made a contract with multiple creatures. Apparently, he had signed contracts with anywhere from 1 to 1,017 shimmering butterflies. He knows this is the most overpowered part of having access to the Lunar Tom. Considering this, he knows he's far from reaching the limit of the strength he can have. And if he's favored by the gods, maybe by showing a miracle, they'll appear themselves. Meanwhile, White Flower is just watching, angry from the sidelines, until she hears someone asking what kind of smelly, messy place this is. Observing, she says that not finding a 3-star tamer here is embarrassing. These are the girls sent by Kang Yu to wipe everyone out. The red-hooded girl tells her not to criticize the Empress's decisions because she must have her reasons for sending them to such an insignificant place. The blonde says she knows, but it's such a hassle to be there, until she catches someone looking at her. The poor girl trembles instantly. She noticed there was a creature with a much higher level than hers staring at her. While she was disheartened, another red-haired girl said she felt something too. It wasn't an enemy they could deal with. It was probably the strongest being in that place, so it would be better not to get involved. Meanwhile, White Flower was bored up on the top of the tower. Our boy, however, was impressed that Kang Yu had sent so many people with supreme-level creatures. White Flower explains that he has no idea how rare this type of event is, which is why she's investing so much. He sees that she's not very happy and asks if she's still mad. She just turns her face and he says they should make peace. But the poor guy is being ignored, so he decides to pull a prank. Since she wanted to act like that, he was going to have to use his ultimate move. He starts pretending to call out to people, saying he knows of a deer who enjoys some very peculiar series. She gets mad and tells him not to say that to anyone. He asks what's so wrong with the stories she reads that no one can know. She tells him to shut up and that if anyone else finds out, she'll take her own life. He tells her to calm down and says she should come closer because he wants to know why. He tells her to stop asking questions and get closer, or he'll tell everyone. At that moment, the poor girl realizes she has no choice. She's a little embarrassed, stalling, and slowly she starts approaching. Our boy says he was just kidding, but it's too late. She launches a deadly attack. Miraculously, she falls to the side. Or maybe not so much to the side after all. Actually, the side doesn't matter because she sorted things out anyway. She leans in and whispers something in his ear that we don't get to hear. Then she pulls away, but the warrior is trembling a little, and she tells him to stop trying to take advantage of others like that. It's ridiculous. She says she's tired of him and is going back to the moon pavilion. He better not even think about visiting her there anymore. With that, she disappears right in front of him. Our boy feels dejected because she said a bunch of things to herself, ran off, and vanished just like that. He thought that threat was dumb, and what he didn't notice was someone approaching. What he still couldn't understand was how her shyness really worked. That's when the girl behind him asks if she's interrupting anything. She's the second seat known as White Rabbit from the Twin Moon Order. Su Liang tells her she can say why she's there while silently thanking that White Flower ran away at the right time. The girl says they managed to severely injure the Black Moon sect, but they got away. He thanks her and says that on the full moon, everything will be settled. He already figured it wouldn't be easy to deal with an organization with such a long legacy. So he calls for the moon in the lake. It begins to emerge in front of him, and from within it, the crescent star appears. He then speaks the crescent star, saying they should make a deal. He wanted her to lend him her power on a full moon night. In exchange, he would provide information on where her sheath was. At that moment, she seems to sense something and her eyes slowly begins to open. As soon as she becomes conscious, an enormous light radiates from the top of the tower. The people from Kang's sect are all terrified, wondering who's at the top of that place. The crescent star grabs the lance and the transformation is finally complete. Seeing that she didn't kill him, he imagines that it was a yes. He then spends 30 points from the tome to gather information about the creature of his sheath that Kang summoned at that meeting. As always, the book starts searching for something. However, it warns him that due to insufficient authority, some information will be hidden. He wouldn't be able to obtain details about the creature called Frost Flower. The only thing he knows is that it is the sheath of the Crescent Star, one of the 7 sacred weapons of the past. The 7 were the greatest creations of the past and beast-type weapons. Each one possessed a different core ability that allowed a master to advance to the next level. A long time ago, the Crescent Star was separated from Frost Flower during a battle in the east. But the system gives a warning. He would need to form a true contract with an Emperor-ranked creature to have enough strength to survive this fight in the eastern region. He already knows that for such a requirement, she must have a Supreme Lord-ranked creature, and the problem is getting the sheath from them. He then says that Frost Flower is in the eastern region. The Crescent Star doesn't seem to react. He then warns her that to get it, they would have to fight against the Queen of Feathers from the Frozen Forest. That doesn't seem to excite her much. And suddenly, she turns around, clenches her fists, and our boy is just watching. Currently, there's no chance that the Twin Moon Order could defeat this Celestial Queen. She would be a target dozens of times stronger than Kang Yu, who was already going to be a problem for him to defeat in 3 years. However, he could see that the Crescent Star was desperate. He mustered up some courage and said that for this, he would ask for 3 years. If she gave him that time, he swore he would take down the Queen of the Frozen Forest. The Crescent Star turns, looking a little confused, and he wonders why he promised something like that. He's even feeling insecure that she won't believe he can actually do it. Once again, this woman says nothing. She then speaks, saying that for hundreds of years, the 7 weapons had always been against the Butterfly Moon Goddess. She had always been hostile and harbored hatred. However, she senses honesty. And for a moment, she was happy that he had allowed her to dream. At that moment, our boy is boiling with rage. This damn woman had been pretending to be mute but knew how to communicate the whole time. All that time she spent dancing and ignoring him was apparently just out of spite. However, he decides to let it go, since what's done is done. So he says he'll do his best to keep this dream alive. But he wants to know if she's finally going to give in. She says that the rivalry goes way back, and if he truly wants to conquer the sheath, a true union wouldn't be impossible. However, if he wanted to reproduce, it couldn't be done without the sheath. What does she mean by that? Our boy is as confused as we are. Meanwhile, in the Academy's welcoming hall, the blonde girl is shouting that he doesn't know what the child said, and the goth girl tells her that she'll say it one more time and orders her to leave. Kang Yu had already declared war against them, so trash like her shouldn't be around. Her friend appears behind her and tells her it's better to stay quiet. That girl is a direct descendant of the curved moon of the Blue Sea, and not even Kang Yu could do anything against her. The red-haired girl approaches and asks if she isn't Princess Bai Yu. She says she knows Bai Yu has a sacred body, like she's 10 years too young to be challenging the people there. This so-called sacred body allows any lunar beast to use its full power when controlled by her. The princess responds that if she's going to lose, they'll have to find out, but that building was sponsored by her empire. And as a princess, she gave the order that none of them were allowed in, so they can turn back. The girl starts losing her cool, telling her not to push her luck. But the princess just smiles and throws her aura in everyone's face. However, who shows up is the silver bunny from our boys' organization, saying to let them through because it's the Lunar King's order. The red-haired girl recognizes that this girl belongs to the Twin Moon Order, and she simply repeats, telling the princess to let them pass. The princess smiles and tells Sister Bunny that it's fine then. With that, Kang Yu's girls finally enter. The princess then asks Silver Bunny what seat she holds in the Twin Moon Order. She responds that she's the second seat and asks why. The princess just says that in that case, the 12th seat must be only a bit stronger than her. But she guarantees that in 3 years, she'll be strong enough to challenge the first seat. Silver Bunny simply says she's looking forward to the day they can fight side by side. But she's already thinking that this girl is extremely arrogant. Still, once the challenges begin, they'll finally see the power of this sacred body. One night before the full moon, someone hides behind a tree while others are passing by. She's confident because the guards are too weak and no one senses her. She asks if everyone is having fun. A drop on top of a leaf replies that yes, but they should be careful because they're in the northern region. The other responds that they're there out of curiosity to see what happened to the Black Moon sect. Not only do they want to know who will win in the end, but also which beasts favor the moon god. After all, at this moment, he seems like a one-star tamer. So how will he defeat an emperor? She then asks why the guy above isn't saying anything. He replies that the fact the Lunar King is a one-star tamer is actually the most frightening thing of all. Meanwhile, our boy is still up on that tower. Please wake up already. Suddenly, he sees a light in the distance and seems to notice something approaching. Man, they blew up his tower. From below, it was that damn antelope who says she finally managed to kill that cursed guy. She congratulates Black Whale for helping her figure out exactly where he was. The guy asks how they're going to escape from there. She says it doesn't matter because she's taken down the Lunar King. From now on, the gods would look favorably upon her. However, that's when she feels something strange. Up above, our boy congratulates the moon in the lake and immediately calls for the crescent star, who now likes him and shows up right away. He tells her to open her eyes, and the moment she does, she's ready for battle. Antelope realizes she's in trouble. She slams her hand on the ground and activates a teleportation zone. A second later, she's gone, leaving the two behind. The guy shouts her name because not only did that damn girl abandon him, but also the beast. The antelope from the girl creates a barrier, but Su Lang simply raises his hand and sends the crescent star. The attack explodes the tower, and man, the two idiots disintegrate. Meanwhile, the antelope thinks she's safe, having gotten so far away, until she feels something coming. When she looks back, there's already a green energy. Another poor soul swept away. In the competition arena, Xiaoju is telling everyone that the tournament is about to begin. She's not going to miss a single detail, so everyone better hit that like button. The little streamer is all excited today, with hundreds of times more viewers than usual. It's all because the beasts favored by the Lunar King will finally be revealed. On stage, others comment that it's too early to start as the full moon hasn't fully risen yet. The girl tells them not to worry about that because whether they win or lose doesn't matter. As long as they get to witness the battle between the emperors and survive, that's enough. After all, the fight between them is just the beginning of everything. But it would be nice if that damn girl were eliminated. Allowing her to continue evolving would be a problem in 3 years. With that, the host thanks everyone for being there and says she'll go over the rules one more time. To participate, you got to be under 20 years old. Secondly, you had to choose your beast at the start and couldn't summon anything else after the battle began. Additionally, anyone could forfeit in the middle of the fight. Fourth, it was forbidden to attack the audience or the beast masters. She says that's everything, and now the tournament will officially begin. At that moment, the princess asks her aunt if she can be the first. Her aunt says not yet because the full moon wasn't in the sky. Besides, she needed to be protected to help the Lunar King in his fight against Kang Yu in 3 years. Our boy is watching the battles from afar. Everything had begun, but the real threat wasn't there yet. He can sense that some Emperor-ranked beings are approaching, and that's the real problem. They were probably coming to observe his fight against the Black Moon sect. The Crescent Star then asks if he can feel it. He asks if she's talking about the Emperors. She says it's something much more important. The moon gods were watching his every move. Meanwhile, in the arena, there's an explosion happening. An alligator roars upwards. The poor guy is feeling sad that his favorite beast was annihilated. The blonde is practically falling asleep, saying these fights are getting too boring. She asks how many fights have already taken place and whether it was time for something high-level to join in. Her friend explains that this was the 5th fight. She stretches and says they're wasting time there. Since these fools weren't going to make a move, she would start. With that, she jumps into the battlefield and asks if anyone from the Bu Empire is willing to fight her. The princess on stage is furious, but her aunt tells her it's not time yet and that she should stay still. However, she doesn't care and jumps anyway. The aunt repeats that it's too dangerous, but the princess says it's fine. She just wants to kill some time. Besides, she knows the Black Moon will arrive soon, so she wants to have some fun. The blonde asks if the kid is sure she wants to go up against her. The princess responds that soon the full moon will rise and they won't have time for fun. That's why she wants to take the chance to shut up those disgusting southerners. Obviously furious, the blonde says that won't come cheap, but someone puts a hand on her shoulder. It's the red-haired girl who says she'll take over from here. Her friend finds it strange, asking why she wants to fight a 3-star child. But she starts to imagine that the redhead might have some kind of plan. Maybe she wanted to take this opportunity to accidentally kill the girl. However, the blonde still wants to fight, saying that the redhead is being too arrogant by stealing her spot like that. But the friend just gives her a stare and she quiets down. The redhead knew something was off about that girl. She needed to ensure that none of the 5 were eliminated at this stage, so that's why she decided to step in. The princess says it was a smart choice, since it would have been boring to beat someone as weak as that. At least now they could have fun for a little longer. The redhead then begins summoning her creatures. A supreme rank lunar pearl spirit, a supreme rank floating water creature, and another supreme rank creature simply named Leaf. She then tells the princess to hurry up and summon her creatures, or was she planning to flee the competition? The princess says her companion is a bit constipated, so it might take a while. Everyone is confused by that statement. The redhead says that's fine, she can take as long as she needs. The entire audience is watching eagerly. Suddenly, the princess shows a pill and pops it into her mouth. The blonde says it must be some kind of drug and that she's cheating. However, the redhead knows it's not a performance-enhancing pill, but a cultivation pill. The girl says that would only make sense if she was about to evolve, and that's when the princess opens her eyes. At that exact moment, she advances to 4 stars. The blue-haired girl says that now she can probably use her beast's full power, but even that wouldn't be enough to beat the redhead. However, the princess says that's already enough. Suddenly, 2 lights burst from her. The radiant moon's soul and the sound of the crescent moon. The redhead asks if she really thinks she'll win with those creatures, and warns that no one from the Empire will interfere in the fight. The princess pauses for a second and starts laughing, saying the redhead is hilarious. It seems the Southerners know nothing about the sacred body, but that's about to change very soon. In that instant, the creature beside her disappears, and in the same second is face to face with the redhead. And man, she's about to take a hit right in the face. A small explosion shakes the entire arena. The blonde wonders how she didn't even see the movement. Her friend tells her to calm down a bit, the fight had just started. Obviously, it wasn't going to be that easy. The redhead easily protected herself with her plant creature. The princess's creature seemed to get annoyed, and unleashed another series of attacks. The noise was so loud that people were covering their ears, but the opponent only wanted to know if that's all she had. Suddenly, the giant pearl appeared in front of her. It launched a direct attack. Man, the poor princess got hit in the stomach, sent flying, smashing the ground to pieces. Before she could get up, she got hit again. Her other creature was closing in from above, but the princess's creature reacted and jumped toward it. Strangely, the other creature stretched out an orb that reflected the princess's image, and then suddenly, it exploded at the tip of her finger, dealing a direct blow to the stomach. With that, the poor girl collapsed to the ground, defeated. Everyone says it was a brutal loss. The blonde says that's the power of the Peach Moon Saint. Clearly, the princess didn't stand a chance. At that moment, a bubble surrounds the princess. The Peach Girl says the fight is over. However, the damage she caused seems to rebound directly onto her. An explosion hits her, and she staggers back, wondering how the damn girl managed to reflect the attack she was going to use to kill her. Worst of all, her creature didn't seem able to defend against it. The poor girl is all worried, not knowing what to do. She moves closer and casts a power that starts healing her bit by bit. With that, she's finally restored. Her friends breathe a sigh of relief. Now she knows the bubble attack won't work, so for now, she'll have to rely on the pearl. Its power was explosive and fast, so it was hard to stop. But suddenly, the mermaid on the ground starts moving. Strangely, she seems to be undergoing a mutation. Even after being nearly defeated, she rises. Peach wonders how that's possible. The attack goes head-to-head with the pearl, which, being distracted, ends up partially shattered. Peach had never heard of a favored beast reviving so quickly. Could the sacred moon body really be that powerful? The princess smiles and says it's time to start everything. This game is coming to an end. The full moon begins to rise, and her creature starts roaring. Everyone knew it would become stronger under the moon's light, but this was a bit much. Peach couldn't believe that a sacred body could make up for the 3-rank difference between them. From a distance, our boy was observing everything, noting that invoking the sacred moon body was truly impressive. Her creature had grown gigantic and leaped toward Peach. With a tail swipe, it hit the arena. The poor girl was worried about being struck, but of course the target was her creatures. Suddenly, the princess's creature leaps into the air and seems to start flying. Peach is confused, wondering what the princess is planning. From above, the creature sends another tail swipe, but then a guy in a hood appears and says she's too arrogant for someone whose only advantage is her body. After all, at this level, she shouldn't even be interfering in this fight. He stretches out his hand, and immediately, a lightning bolt strikes, frying the poor girl. She writhes in agony until the princess's creature falls. The girl is saddened since the time was coming to discover what the Lunar King's secrets were. Then she realizes that not only her phone, but everyone else's phones stop working. Suddenly, a strange bunny appears in the arena, and right away it slaps with its ears. The guy shouts the name of Tinta, and a black wall rises to the sky. Suddenly, a similar, but supreme-ranked bunny appears in the middle of the arena. He says to the protagonist bunny that she looks like a lunar rabbit, but seems a little different. He wants to know if she's male or female, and if she can talk. Seeing that she can't communicate, he says it won't be much fun. Then something starts forming in his stomach. With his ears, he pulls out 2 spike balls. The bunny lets out a roar, and in the same instant, leaps toward him. But man, here comes the attack. It strikes, and the poor bunny is hit hard in the stomach. My friend, she was blasted far out of the arena. The guy, excited, says they're getting closer. Meanwhile, our boy is just hanging out with his butterflies. From atop a building, White Flower asks what they're going to do. He says for now, no one should worry. That bunny's recovery ability is stronger than even the sacred body itself. But suddenly, both the moon and the crescent flower seem to sense something. Above the arena is the Lightning Moon Princess, who sends an attack toward the arena. Once again, the city is about to be completely destroyed. Almost everything is obliterated, except for a barrier they had raised. It had been put up as a countermeasure in case something like this happened. But she's worried about what happened to the Lunar King. Strangely, though the castle he was in seen untouched, the Lightning Moon Princess says that's impossible. How could even an attack like that not make the Lunar King move from his position? But our boy is terrified. The moon in the lake had already protected him from several attacks from the Crescent Star. But this time, her energy was almost completely drained by the attack from the Lightning Moon Princess. At that moment, the Crescent Star steps forward and says she'll handle it. She leaps into the sky and begins floating in front of the moon. She raises her hand as if asking for something. People wonder if this is some kind of counterattack. At that moment, the Lightning Princess pulls out 2 weapons. Both merge and transform into 2 other women. They were eager to fight the Crescent Star, as she was a famous weapon. They charge forward, saying that she only had a chance in the past era because they didn't exist back then. But just then, a sparkle appears on her face, and the fools are wiped out in an instant. The battle had barely begun, and 2 supreme-ranked creatures were already eliminated. The hooded guy spits a little blood, realizing it wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. That's when he sees something forming above everyone, and the Thunder Princess raises a shield. Once again, the attack from the Crescent Star begins tearing up the ground. Chaos is spreading everywhere, and it's raining heavily in the area. The people on the stage are quite calm. Half the terrain had been decimated. Suddenly, the attack stopped, and the blade that was in the sky turned toward the crescent moon. Su Liang was impressed, especially since he hadn't even seen her power combined with the sheath. Peach realized that if he dealt with 3 members of the Black Moon Association so easily, it probably wouldn't be easy for Kang Yu either. Meanwhile, the princess was being pulled from the stage, saying that the Lunar King was truly incredible. However, the Crescent Star tells Su Liang that he shouldn't get distracted, because even that powerful attack can only be used once more under this full moon. He gets excited and says that being able to use it again is already more than enough. He then tells White Flower that it's her turn to step into the field and buy as much time for the team as possible. As usual, she's not too thrilled about being ordered around, but our boy tells her to follow the plan. They're just preparing for the arrival of the real emperors. And that's when he notices something. He was curious to see her appearance under a full moon. Who could be coming and how dangerous will it be? Meanwhile, the mages think that winning a 3-on-1 fight would be good enough. Behind the Black Rabbit, something begins to rise. He turns around to see what it is, and our boy's little bunny is back fully healed. He realizes she has high regeneration and says this is going to be fun. She leaps toward him and he says she's still too clumsy. With that, he starts spinning his ears. Man, she goes head to head without hesitation, but there's something else coming from above. He slices her ear, but it quickly regenerates. He starts to get confused, wondering how a beast could recover so much of his body like that. So he speeds up and cuts her 3 more times. But the next second, she's back again. The poor guy is trying, but he's already exhausted and can't manage to kill her. He begins to think that maybe the best idea is to trap her and get out of there. With that, he throws his ears up and announces that he's going to finish this. He lands a full-on attack on her. Once again, an explosion rises, destroying everything. Peach is impressed that the ground had been torn apart, or rather, he had dug a hole. The excited enemy says that now, with kilometers of distance underground, she won't come back. Meanwhile, our boy is impressed with the strength of his bunny. But now that she's been buried, he's unfortunately going to have to call for the Crescent Star. However, that's when he notices something strange. The ground in front of the Black Rabbit begins to tremble. And look who's back from the hole. Man, she's looking a little purple, isn't she? The enemy realizes she's evolved into a mid-level rabbit. He'd never heard of a creature being able to change species like that out of nowhere. But in our boy's book, it says that exposure to or fluctuations in emotions can speed up evolution. That's when he realizes that she'll keep getting stronger as time goes on. However, the other creature isn't thrilled, saying he'll never fight equally with such a weak lunar rabbit. He charges at her and delivers another ear strike, but this time it lands cleanly and does no damage. Now he realizes that she's truly become much stronger than before. He decides to throw himself at her to finish things once and for all. But man, something cut the guy. She sent a small explosion with her ear that wiped everything out. From a distance, the hooded man is in bad shape, with even his ink dissolved. When someone approaches, he's startled. I'm also getting scared. Look at the danger coming. On the full moon night, White Flower arrives. Thankfully, she follows YouTube guidelines, and the guy is shocked that he has a humanoid beast. Now he knows who took down that water emperor from before. The gigantic Thunder Princess casts some spells, but White Flower easily defends herself with a shield. The hooded man says that since she's alone, she might as well give up. But White Flower just tells him to stop talking nonsense. She's only there to make him summon his last creature, so he should stop stalling. But the guy unrolls a scroll and begins to unravel it. He warns that he can obtain the ultimate technique of every creature he defeats. At that moment, she would have to face more than 10 supreme beings. And after that, they'd figure out which one she would replace. But White Flower just says he's noisy and that she'll show what she's capable of. She raises her arm and announces that the move can only be done under a full moon. Here comes another flash of light, or maybe not. She changes form to the Princess of the Clouds and draws 2 katanas. The woman already realizes those are Imperial weapons. White Flower stared at her for a second, and in the next, she was already behind her. Man, that strike must have hit clean. The poor woman was completely sliced up, and poor Peach couldn't even see the movement clearly. Truly, the power of the Cloud Empress was much more terrifying than she had imagined. It turns out the shield of that wretched mage who never dies was what was destroyed. She then says that based on the dissipation, it must be a creature that negates damage. The scroll flies back and tells her not to get too confident, and then he summons the shining winged butterfly. That seems to impress White Flower, and suddenly a barrage of lights rushes toward her. She easily dodges the first attack, but it ricochets and comes from behind. With that, the poor girl's outfit is cut. Thankfully, we're still family friendly. But suddenly, everything explodes in the sky. She appears behind the scroll and asks if he's going to use those mediocre techniques again. The poor guy wants to know what happened, but White Flower just tells him to stop relying on those with less power than him. And now she cuts the scroll for good. Surely it's dead this time. Once again, the hooded man laments his defeat. White Flower says that if he had followed the initial advice, he wouldn't have suffered so much. He realizes he was wrong to think he could defeat the Lunar King, and then he tells the Lunar Palace to sign the transfer contract. Meanwhile, the fox girl with her water drop is watching everything. The drop says that the girl will become the next Snow Queen. The fox, however, says it's impossible for someone like her to become an Ice Queen. Suddenly, an aura rises. Man, the entire city is being swept away. Our boy is being carried by the butterflies. White Flower was thrown back. He asks if she's facing an emperor, and she says she's not sure. But one thing's for certain, this person is already halfway to becoming one. Suddenly, a giant green orb appears in front of her. From inside, a foot begins to emerge. A lazy girl steps out. Both Peach and the fox seem to recognize her as a warrior from the Supreme Palace. They're all wondering why the Black Moon would summon something like that. The system alerts that the moon of the palace has a high concentration of Emperor's blood, and it's the strongest in the supreme rank. The princess says that woman is shameless, and all of the Twin Moon Order would have to take her down together. She seems quite lazy, until she suddenly notices something. The Thunder Girl asks what's wrong, and she says that the moonlight there isn't normal. Also, there were 2 glowing butterflies, which also didn't seem natural, considering they were in the northern region. The guy asks what she means by that. He says it doesn't matter, half the butterflies are here, but it won't make a difference. The important thing is the opponent in front of her, whom she recognizes as White Flower. She prepares a power in each hand, and suddenly claws appear in their place. White Flower just gets ready without saying a word. She vanishes immediately, and the two collide above the arena. While they zigzag back and forth, no one can even see what's happening. People are amazed that White Flower is actually going head-to-head with her, and Su Liang had no idea she could handle so much intensity. This was a supreme-level battle on a scale he had never seen before. This kind of thing, humans like him couldn't even intervene. As soon as White Flower hits the ground, the woman prepares an explosion, and sends a barrage of green light. The poor thing looks clueless, not knowing what to do. And man, she's swept away. What is this, my friend? She cut the mountain in half. It seems she shifted into her spiritual form and just barely dodged. But it was close. Our boy almost died without realizing it. Once again, his bunny saved the day, or he would have been hit head-on. And the bunny reconstitutes itself, and Su Liang knows. The more emotions it carries and the longer it's under the full moon, the stronger it will become. This means it's still far from its limit. And once again, it throws itself into the fight. Meanwhile, poor White Flower is taking a beating. The green girl is the moon of the Treasure Palace, but I'll just call her Treasure to keep things simple. At that moment, Treasure takes a grab from the bunny. She asks how they have the nerve to make such a sneaky attack. And man, she's slammed into the ground. White Flower slowly approaches. She prepares her 2 blades, looks down, and sends an explosion in her direction. The hooded guy tells the Thunder Girl to help. She raises her hands to the sky, gathering all the power she can. But strangely, the clouds seem to dissipate. She's confused, not understanding what's happening. Beside her is a greenish figure staring. She wonders when that damn crescent star got there. But she tries to conjure power again, knowing she needs to save that girl. Yet strangely, the crescent moon ignores her completely and walks away. Another explosion added to the collection. The bunny and white moon retreat, and Treasure asks how two useless beings like them dared to attack like that. She begins to prepare a sphere in her hand and says that now they will know fear. A barrage of green moons is launched. Once again, White Flower is torn apart, but she easily dodges in her astral form. Meanwhile, the bunny, on the other hand, is getting shot at. She has to hide behind the bunny. That's because the ability has a usage limit, and if it exceeds it, she'll actually be cut. For now, she also has to rely on this regeneration to stay alive. The problem is that won't last forever. She knows at most she'll gain a minute, but then she notices something. A sequence of attacks is coming from behind. They strike the green moons, and Treasure wonders what's going on. Obviously, it was the crescent star that had joined the chaos, and Treasure says that damn star arrived at the wrong time, just as she was about to win. But White Flower found the opportunity she needed to finish this for good. She stretches her blades to the side, and they dissolve. She places her hand on her head and sends a little signal. Our boy wonders what kind of shameless pose that is, but the power begins to accumulate. She begins condensing all the energy around her, and from a distance, Treasure has no idea what's happening. A tornado forms behind the rabbit, and she starts wondering who this girl really is. White Flower reveals that she is the true moon chaser, and if she survives this attack, maybe she'll be accepted as an apprentice. But Treasure laughs, saying she's old enough to be her mother. A green and black circle starts forming in the sky. Treasure warns that everything will turn to ashes. But White Flower just extends her arm and summons a giant deer in her direction. It materializes and headbutts the circle directly. Once again, there's a small explosion. Smoke covers the entire field, and no one in the audience has any idea what's going on. The hooded guy laughs, saying it's ridiculous that the Lunar King had no chance against him. I don't know what that fool is talking about, especially since our boy is standing there quite calmly. However, he looks to the sky and wonders if the gods enjoyed this spectacle. But now that the appetizer has been served, it's time for the banquet. The audience is scared because everything has become dark. The moon begins to be covered, and Su Liang says that lately his heart had been racing. But in this moment, right before the fight with the Emperor, he feels completely calm. White Flower asks if he's really that confident, and he replies that he doesn't see how it's possible for him to lose. White Flower, startled, asks if he's sure. He says yes, even though it sounds arrogant like the old Lunar King. The people of the Black Moon brought back some old memories in his head, but they seem more like hallucinations than memories. He remembers growing up with the girls of the Northern Palace and always being treated with great care. He recalls that when he was younger, to verify the authenticity of his memory, he wrote a book in English. But all these memories were erased by an entity. The truth is, there never was an old version of him. He was always himself. He was born into this world with the memories of his former life on Earth. However, at some point, they were all erased. Until 2 months ago, when he hit his head and finally remembered everything. But that already showed that there were some extremely dangerous entities. Just as the people of the Black Moon said 3 years ago, he had a very important pet. And he knows that this is the key to becoming God's apostle. A giant paw begins to descend from the sky. Horns and long hair. Miraculously, I thought it would be a girl, but it's actually just a giant goat. And man, talk about giant. The colossal creature stares down at the entire arena. The arena still has that barrier, but it won't last much longer. Our boy knows that as soon as it falls, innocents will die. The giant goat says that the Black Moon cult has become decadent for summoning her for something like this, and asks who the opponent is. He asks for help in killing God's apostle. She looks in disbelief, and says that for them not to be able to handle a weak region like the North, the organization has truly fallen. But since that's the case, they'll have some fun before the end. Su Liang stands there with his butterflies, all stylish. When suddenly, he pulls a liquid from his pocket. He tells White Flower that he pulled out Wing Fang Tong body fluid. That's right, folks. And our boy confidently spills a drop of it. No one knows where it's coming from, just like them. Obviously, they're confused, wondering why he threw it on the ground. But he says it will help them find an easier path. White Flower remains confused, not understanding what he's talking about. Suddenly, a buzzing sound is heard behind her. Everyone in the audience turns to look. From afar, a strange yellow cloud is approaching. Our boy says he has always been the owner of the Moon Book, and as the apostle of the northern region, he would gather all the butterflies, and at the same time sign a contract with each one of them. A few days ago, he sent a message to each of the others he already controlled, and all of them from various regions began to escape. Even those who had formed contracts had their contracts broken. And to distract everyone, he brought butterflies from every part of the north. All of this was to prepare for the battle with the Emperor. At that moment, he finally opens the book. The girls wonder if the Lunar King is really going to summon an Emperor-level creature. Everyone is eager to know what he's going to bring to the table. Suddenly, all the butterflies seem to separate from him. Someone calls them idiots and says the butterflies are retreating. But Peach already knew. Soon that place would become a battlefield between emperors. He looks up the sky and asks if the moon goddess is watching, and if this opening of the festival was enough to whet her appetite. If she was watching, it was time to perform a miracle. The goat thinks that even though these creatures are weak, having so many of them is annoying. As much as she wanted to slap that kid, she didn't want to do it. She knew that if she wiped out so many lunar creatures, she would never receive their favor. And our boy is smiling, thinking that everything is almost ready. He had made a contract with over 1,300,000 butterflies. Suddenly, the entire book starts moving. He was only hoping for another page. He knew that was the hardest page to turn in the history of the Moon Book. He never imagined that the information about the 7 weapons had been hidden. This book held many secrets that had been erased from his memory, and he knew that with the original power it should have contained, he would be much further along by now. Suddenly, he feels something, and that page begins to turn. A golden energy rises into the sky. The fox is startled. She felt the aura of a terrifying emperor and wonders what it could be. Suddenly, Kang Yu reveals herself hiding there. She says that indeed the Lunar King will meet his end at this festival. With that, she starts to disappear, saying there's nothing more to see, and she vanishes into thin air. The fox is confused, wondering how long that wretched girl had been standing right behind them. As Su Liang's butterflies seem to start gathering, a huge wing appears in the sky, and the people in the arena are even crouching down. Bowen is even crying, saying she never expected to witness such a miracle in her life. The hooded man asks the goat if she thinks she can beat that thing, to which she suddenly giggles and turns around crying, saying there's no way to beat that thing ahead. They had lasted a long time, but the Black Moon cult had come to an end. There was no way for them to win anymore, so it was time for everyone to give up. They would have to close the curtain because they didn't belong to this era. He's confused, not understanding why she's so afraid. And the goat says she's lived a long time but has never heard of a true apostle of the gods. However, it seemed there was one before her now. What appears on the field is the butterfly guarding the palace. The hooded man wonders what kind of emperor-level creature that is. It merely flaps its wings and an earthquake begins to sweep through the entire region, knocking everyone out. Even the thunder giant collapses to her knees. Not even our boy's creatures can stay on their feet. The poor fox is taking a hit by association. No one told her to stick her nose where it didn't belong. She knew that not even in the entire central region was there a being as powerful as that. And man, if that goat was gigantic, that creature was the size of a planet. The poor goat just says it's an honor to die this way in this life. Standing there, facing it, saying that after her death, she hopes to become a part of the moon's light, so that she may exist in all the generations to come. Man, I think she's really been swept away. Meanwhile, the two fools and the protagonist are unconscious on the ground. It seems the boy is regaining the memories of truly being the lunar god, and that scene reminds him of something that had already happened. 3 years ago, he had devastated everything, and apparently, nothing had changed. Back then, he was already called the Lunar King, and this time, the events didn't make him lose his memory. That means summoning this creature wasn't related to that. He then begins to worry about the disaster he caused. The entire barrier had been destroyed. However, it seems that everyone had only lost consciousness. So most likely the moon and the lake managed to protect them one last time. Probably the creature he summoned had no idea he had lost his memory. And if there's one thing he learned from this battle, it's that he needs to remember who he truly was as quickly as possible. The poor remnants of the Black Moon cult lay defeated, their leader having sacrificed 20 years of life to drain energies from the Black Moon to survive that attack. But Su Liang simply tells him that today's battle had no meaning at all. The old man agrees, saying that's true, since the gods weren't watching him. Our boy asks why he threw his life away like that. Was he hoping that festival would restore his energy? The old man pauses and laughs, telling the Lunar King not to ask something so ridiculous. He was also a member of the Moonlight Clan, so it wasn't strange that he wanted to surpass the strongest person of this generation. As long as he had the chance to win, he wouldn't give up his life. It was just a pity that all of this was a farce by the gods, as the gap between them was far too great. Our boy then asks why he tried so hard to please the gods. He should forget about all of that and think that at least today's battle had been fun. The old man asks if he had really enjoyed it as well, and if he had been strong enough to at least give him a bit of a headache. Su Liang says yes, he gave it his all in this battle. And now that it's all over, he had no reason to insult the man anymore. The old man fades away, saying it was good to disappear with these comforting lies. And then he tells Su Liang to remember what he's about to say because it's related to his memory loss. In the battle from the past, he had also summoned the Palace Guardian, which was the 8-winged butterfly. The fight that day erased 1/3 of the entire northern continent, but strangely, no one wondered what had happened. It seems everyone forgot what occurred that day. He mourns that what happened back then was clearly not something simple, and he says Su Liang should start taking care of himself. The plans the gods had for him were far more unpredictable than he thought. With the end of that man came the end of the Black Moon cult. However, Su Liang wasn't feeling happy. The memory loss he suffered had nothing to do with the Black Moon cult, and that existence that caused the disappearance of 1/3 of the North was far beyond his reach. He clenches his fists but quickly relaxes. At this moment, there was nothing he could do about it. Strangely, his heart felt heavier than ever, even though the crisis had been resolved. But perhaps, even for a short period, he could relax a bit. And with that, he faints in the middle of everyone. A few hours pass, and the fox says it's crazy that just the distant energy caused them all to pass out like that. The only downside is that they must have missed the end of that fight. But then she notices something that changes her expression. There was a giant deer above the skies, glowing. The little bunny was also walking on the clouds, and she asked the Kermit Sky Goddess what she thought of the spectacle she put on. The opening she created during the fight had been spectacular, but the deer tells her not to interfere with the Moonlight Festival anymore, and that from now on, she would no longer be free within the Northern Territory. The little bunny stays silent for a second. Then she changes her expression, saying that the deer is cruel. She starts walking away, saying she misunderstood and that she never interfered in that festival. After all, the person who won was the boy with the moon god's book. And at least now, there was no need to worry about finding another perfect candidate. Sometimes I get confused by this story too. But I think these are two gods above the moon discussing what happened down below. That great deer is the current great goddess, who's just staring down at poor white flower, unconscious on the ground. She sees our boy with his arms wide open like a fool, and she lets out a small smile. Half an hour passes, and that fox, who's just there as a spectator, is impressed she saw gods right in front of her. She finally explains that the deer is the one who created the 7 legendary weapons. Her name was Calamity of Pure White, and she hadn't been seen since the last time the festival took place. It seems the bunny and the deer are enemies wherever they come from. The little droplet says those beings would never care about them. It's better to pretend they didn't see anything and never speak of it to anyone. But someone asks what they're talking about. One of the girls from the prayer group shows up, asking if a divine creature had really appeared. The two fools are shocked because they didn't even notice her approaching. The little bird in her hand says not to worry, the divine being had already left. But the fox just points and tells her to stop playing tricks and say who she really is. She introduces herself as a simple mortal, the administrator of the pet area of the Twin Moon Order, which belongs to our protagonist. She never imagined that 2 people from such a distant empire would be there, so she came to apologize. And this person in her hand had something to say. The bird suddenly locks eyes with them. Apparently, it's not weak, as the two are startled. She kneels down and seems to recognize the gaze. The little bird flies into the air and begins emitting a light. Man, and now it's all hairy. That's the Guardian of the Moon, part of our protagonist's sect. She warns them that they invaded the North without her permission, so they're banned for a year from coming to that place or transmitting any information. If she hears of anything like that, the two will be exterminated. She says she cannot interfere with the Moonlight Festival. But when it comes to the North, she still has the authority to punish whoever goes there. Now it makes sense why her name included Sagittarius. Man, her strike created a futuristic weapon with constellations. But alright, she hits with an impact. I thought it would hit those poor folks in the fight, but no, it hit the Moon Goddess Palace. The place is always swept clean, and the old ladies are all scared. But the guardian of that palace also appears. She asks Sagittarius to calm down, saying the Moon Goddess Palace had no ill intentions toward her. And then she asks who gave permission for that wretched girl to leave and cause trouble. At that moment, the princess from the beginning shows up. Someone says the 4th concubine will be expelled in 3 days, and she just says yes. Apparently, she was the 4th concubine because she was already in some abandoned ruins. Sometimes I don't understand what's going on either. The place exploded, the girl left, and she got expelled. Who knows? Looking at a picture of the girl, she wonders why they say the northern part doesn't exist. She wanted to know what happened 3 years ago and if he already had an answer. The famous Su Liang, moon god, and her nephew. Our girl, who's still unconscious in the arena, starts to wake up. He opens his eyes and finds himself in a strange sky where he's supposed to receive his rewards. But when he looks to the side, he sees something strange.